Thank you very much for taking the time to join Tech Break by Friday. So it's an honor to have you in the podcast. I would like for you to give us a brief description of yourself and your expertise so our guests are aware of your topics and what we are going to discuss today.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, pleasure to meet you and thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Quirk. I am the founder of Sparrow Risk Group. We are an agile risk mitigation firm that solves problems for financial sector, high net worth families and their enterprises, and really anyone who's looking for bespoke solutions to complex problems. Security is complex, it shouldn't be complicated. My specific background started in the Marine Corps. It was a bit diverse. My first deployment was in support of counterinsurgency operations in 2006. I wound up doing work with counterintelligence units, and that gave me my first real introduction into just how complex the machine is in terms of supporting operations and how much support really goes into operations. So that helped me form Sparrow, in my opinion, the correct way, which would be this evolution of security that we're seeing. After that time, path of least resistance, I went into law enforcement, found myself as a sniper on a full-time special operations unit there. Great career, great people, learned a lot. Left law enforcement, went into government contracting, served as a contract sniper there as well. Did that for a couple of years, and that's where I really saw an opportunity in the private security ecosystem for a different type of company. And I set out to leverage my network and my friends who were integral in having me started. And that's where we are today.
That's great. Also, would like to say thank you for your service. You have gone into various sectors. So let's start with, would say that IRAs are targeted towards to manage money, but they aren't also massive banks. So how does this apply to you as a consultancy or an agency, as we would say? And why would, for example, hackers go into middlemen compared to like big tech in 2026, especially with AI now?
Well, that's a very good term. Soft target's a great term that we use. And hard target would be somewhere like Fort Knox, right? That's a very hard thing to get into.
Sure.
My background specifically that I failed to mention was that I also have a strong background as a covert entry specialist. So that means I was an offensive actor for physically or technologically penetrating locations. I'm trained to hack access control systems, alarm systems, things of that nature. My cyber team also has a lot of experience working in the offensive side of things, supporting the global war on terror for various national level objectives. But you said something that I really want to double tap on. And the RIAs, aren't targeted because they manage the money, because they don't actually manage all that much. The money is stored with a custodian, which has very, very strong and reinforced, we'll say, cybersecurity protocols. They spend millions of dollars a year to make sure it's safe, it's insured, they take out extra policies. We won't get into the weeds on that. RIAs are targeted due to access. What we are finding is the number one type of attack that we are seeing in this sector, and that includes RIAs and the third-party vendors that they use for marketing, other consulting services. They want access to the RIA's clientele. And then from there, then they can use what we call social engineering to try and basically trick people into changing login credentials, or they'll create what is called the captive portal, where they'll use AI to create a perfect fake of your Fidelity account, your Microsoft account, what have you, and you go to log in and they've just stolen your credentials, and they very quickly will then lock you out and begin to move laterally through the network and really wreak some havoc. So the important thing is, if you have connectivity to a high risk sector like finance, you really should be looking at your email security protocols, your DMARC settings, your domain settings first and foremost, and then adding other layers like email protection, and you can go down the line, and also endpoint protection. But most marketing and consultancy agencies work primarily via email. They move at a fast pace, so they may miss subtle tells on where something might not be legitimate, and that's what they're waiting for. That's a phishing attack, a social engineering attack. They want it to look good enough, and then they're going to use trust and urgency to get you to click that button or open that link or fill out that form. So they would rather target consultants because they know that they're going to have far less robust cybersecurity countermeasures. And that's what we're trying to change, to get these consultants and bring it forth in a price point that they can afford, and they know that they're secure, and by extension, their clients are as well.
That's amazing. And that's, I think, towards the digital side of it. Mm-hmm. So if we move towards the physical, what is one lesson that you have learned maybe from physical security that you can basically apply it to this business owners now? It fails to apply on digital exactly.
Okay, that's a good question. We'll put it this way. An asset is an asset, right? In some instances, my asset has been a head of state or maybe royalty. In other incidents, my asset was a box of high value, whatever was in that box, right? So an asset is an asset. Protecting that asset needs an understanding of really two things to start: where they are and where they want to be. But I can't understand where that asset, in this instance, we're talking physical security or holistic security. So we'll say it's an individual or a business. I can't develop a custom plan for you, tailored for you, which has all the fat trimmed off it, which means it's less money. You're not paying for things you don't need. I need to understand exactly where you are. So the first thing we have to understand is there's a common word that's thrown around, but I think it's lost its meaning: security. If you polled 100 people and said, close your eyes, and when I say a word, tell me the first thing that pops in your head, you'd have 100 different answers. Might be a guy at a mall in a uniform, might be a Secret Service guy with the black sunglasses on inside. It might be a military member, right? I'm just picking three out of a hat.
Sure.
Security is nothing more than a tool. It's a vehicle to do one thing, and that is to mitigate risk. What is risk? The best way I heard it described is risk is where threats and vulnerabilities intersect. Your vulnerabilities, you can control those, but first we have to identify them. Threats to you, you cannot control, and they're always evolving. It's a cat and mouse game. The bad guys use AI to target specific systems, and I have to protect against that. I have to guess what they're going to do before they do it. That's where the predictive security analysis comes in. But I can only do that when I have my expert analyst conduct a detailed threat and vulnerability assessment. And from there, I can find out the best way to protect that asset, whether it's the physical protection of someone in Afghanistan or if it's the physical protection of a company in Boise. It's the same process.
Yeah. How it differs, productivity compared to like, okay, now we are acting, basically being reactive and proactive, not just acting on what has happened now, on a security vulnerability right now. Do you want to basically mention how this affects your clients from day to day, like someone who has waited to enable security, for example, after a threat has already happened, to someone who was proactive enough to do that before and they have gained specifically something by being proactive?
Yeah, you're tugging at my heartstrings here. This is something that I very often discuss with clients, and really my strength and the reason why my company has had the success that it has and the efficacy that it has is not due to me. I have a network of the very best in the world at what they do. We have intelligence, cybersecurity, we have operations, and within there we have human behavior experts. So I say all that to say, one of my very good friends, his name is Brian Marin, and his partner, Greg Williams, at Arcadia Cognerati. They are the foremost experts, in my opinion, in the world on human behavior and pattern recognition. So if you haven't checked them out, your listeners, you're going to gather so much information from them. But what I'll say is they preach staying left of bang, right? Bang being the incident, bang being the cyber hack, bang being the mugging, bang being the car bomb in a war zone. Stay to the left of it. That's being proactive. That's using predictive analysis to see anomalies within your environment and go, something's not right. I don't quite know what it is, but I need to prepare myself. So proactivity is always going to be cheaper, both monetarily and with potential fallout than reactivity, right? Reactivity you're never going to beat it. You're kind of on your heels. And I always tell clients, if you call me after an event, I have to cast a very large net because I don't know the totality of the situation yet. And typically when clients call me after an event, their emotional level, if we use it on a scale from 1 to 10, they're at a 9 or a 10. They're scared. They've lost something. Their spouse may be in their ear telling them to figure this out. I think everyone on this podcast would agree that if you make decisions from an emotional standpoint, they're not always the best ones, right? Think about a time when you've been maybe in an argument with your significant other. Maybe you don't say the perfect thing because your emotions are taking over, not your logical brain. So we want the logical brain to take over. So I have to take their anxiety first and foremost. I play therapist for 10 minutes. I'm not a licensed therapist. Let me say that before the internet jumps all over me. I have to get the anxiety from a 10 down to a 4. And then I say, okay, do you feel better? Let's get the totality of the circumstances. Now, once I get that totality, I have to cast a large net, which costs more money. I don't want to cost the client more money. The more information we have beforehand, I can be a scalpel and not a sledgehammer because I have to get a hand on what's going on. There was an incident in 2024 with a rather large, been given permission to discuss this. I will redact it as much as possible for their privacy. It is a very large company. We'll say they do north of $15 million a year annually. So it's a decent sized business, right? Family run business. They had IT in place. They were paying an outsourced IT provider, and we still work with this IT provider to this day. But here's the distinction that's important to know. Cybersecurity and IT are two separate things. I know it all kind of gets lumped together. They are not. IT is the foundation of the house. Cybersecurity is the alarm system. We do the alarm system. We make sure that nobody's getting in and taking your stuff, for lack of a better term. This firm was using antiquated software to run their business. And in order to make that software run, the IT provider had to leave a port open on a physical server at the location. Okay.
Whoa.
This creates what we call an attack vector. So now if somebody should stumble upon that, that gives them a door in. When I went to covert entry school, the most secure building in the world has one with no doors and windows. As soon as you start adding doors and windows, you got a problem. So they wound up getting into the system. We then had a ransomware situation. On top of that, they were able to then steal credentials, not only to business programs, but also banks, personal banking information. Then because their email protocol, I mentioned this earlier, make sure your email protocols are secure enough. And we do this for our clients. It's really not that expensive. They were able to spoof her email, and then they were emailing clients changing their banking info. Hey, this is the new banking info. Wire your payment here. Here's your new banking info. Wire the payment here. You can imagine how bad this could be. And that is a perfect example of that lack of proactivity or thinking everything is fine without having an expert conduct a threat and vulnerability assessment on your system. You didn't know you had these vulnerabilities. We would have seen it and said, hey, that's not good. Here, we'll fix it for you. We'll put you on our protection for X amount per year. I can tell you it is a fraction of what they had to pay us to fix it. And they are still a client to this day. And they haven't had a single incident since then. And I mean, we still text each other back and forth periodically just to check in. So I've made a friend out of it, but unfortunately it was under less than ideal circumstances, but it is a prime example of a digital example of proactivity versus reactivity and the cost associated with it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a huge cost. Mostly tends to be a mess at that stage. Tend to have terms like social engineering. I assume that high net worth individuals are prime targets for maybe AI voice cloning, AI deepfakes. That includes video and images as well. And maybe that has to do with how they are also securing their digital, but also their physical assets. For example, bank, if they can clone someone's voice. Since some of the banks have voice verification. How can a business owner verify a request from a client or a partner that needs payment that like they can trust? Because now we seem to not have this trust in what we see online, at least.
Yeah, that's a major problem. I've dealt with a few of these instances this past few months. I'm my own father. just to give you a personal note, right? Family is will always be more important than business to me, and it should be, in my opinion, to everybody. My own father was sitting on the couch, and he got a FaceTime from his wife, who was sitting right next to him, whose phone was in the kitchen. He didn't tell me, he didn't think anything of it. You know, he's retired. He hates his phone. If he could launch it in a lake, he would. He wound up telling me a few days later, you know, hey, oh yeah, she called me the other day. It was right next to me. Thought it was funny. One, due to what I do for work, I said, no, that's not good. We gotta take a look at this. So usually that stems from a data breach, and then they just go through connected phone numbers. They pick one, see if it works, right? So it's not that complicated, but it is very, very common. And you know, these deep fakes or AI is getting very, very good. So even these programs that are used to detect differences in speech, how good are they? Are they better than the AI creating the speech? I don't know. Flip a coin. You have a 50-50 shot. So a good rule of thumb. So let's get back to what you said now. You know, verify it. Buddy is talking about how AI and technology can help their business. I don't care if you're in talking about finance, which we've mentioned a few times on this, or if you're talking about somebody who's selling muffins. They're all looking for a way to automate processes. We all do it because it reduces our day-to-day on mundane tasks like cataloging and things like that. The problem is there's two sides to every coin, especially when it comes to technology. We've had a parabolic growth over the past half decade in technology, right? AI specifically has supercharged it. When you have all these good things, wow, look what this can do, look what this can do, look what this can do. It's kind of like, if you've ever seen Jurassic Park, he said, everybody kept asking if you could, nobody asked if you should. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying you can't ask how it can benefit you without at the same breath asking how it could create a vulnerability. You have to ask those questions. We're here for those questions. A good rule of thumb, when the bad guys are going high tech, let's say a transfer over $250,000 has to be approved by a certain person within an RIA. We'll use an RIA as an example. So they're attacking high net worth individuals through a known conduit that, by the way, has public disclosures, right? Press releases, regulatory disclosures. So they'll say, hey, we have 400 million under management. That's great. Mm-hmm. You just told the hackers that you have a lot there, so you're worthwhile. Your public disclosures, hey, company A was just acquired by company B. Awesome. Also, you're doing their profiling for them. They're going on your LinkedIn, they're going on your Facebook, they're figuring out your kids' names, they're looking at the reflection in the mirror of your car to see what type of security cameras you have. This is what is actually happening, because this is what I did offensively. I would monitor it offensively, and then create security countermeasures to kind of combat that. So as I was saying, when the bad guys go high tech, which is what's happening, go low tech. So I'm going to give a free piece of advice right now that I have given to many RIAs to solve this problem. Set a policy and enforce a policy where anything over a certain dollar amount has to be approved by, and list 3 names: John Smith, Jane Smith, Steve Smith. Okay, great. Then what you do, you go into a non-attributable AI platform, something that's not connected to your name personally. AI doesn't have to know your real email or your real name. Why? Use non-attributable AI and just ask it to give you 52 words of 7 letters, and that's it. Give you the list. So now you're going to have 52 words. You take that, you copy it, you paste it into a document, and you print it out. Can't hack it. It's a piece of paper. Don't even save the document. Print it out. That goes in those 3 people's offices. Anything over $250,000, before it gets sent out, what is this week's code word? Now you have a rolling code system that is not connected to a non-attributable AI, right? It's not stored anywhere. You have a piece of paper on your desk. So physical control is now an issue, but now you have a low security. It costs $0, but maybe 3 sets in ink. And now you have a very strong additional layer of security that can give you that peace of mind at night and maybe catch somebody trying to scam you out of some money.
Yeah, that's right. And I think here you have combined physical with digital. Like,
I have.
Yeah, this is something that most people, I think, have not heard in a plan against at least cybersecurity threats or attacks.
Yeah.
Is this an approach that you usually do for your clients? You try to find these sort of systems into thinking both analogically but also like digitally? And if you can
Absolutely.
give us, yeah, just how you think it through.
Yeah, so there's something called tactical cunning. It was one of the pillars of past work that I've done, right? Just being good at what you do. Let's take, my career started as a Marine, and then I did the government high threat security stuff. So let's take that version of me. I was very good at what I did. I was trained very well by my instructors, and I was very good whenever I was encountered with violence directed towards me or my people. To be a truly effective operator, you have to have that cunning. You have to be able to take a step back and think, okay, I know these attack vectors. I know these things are possible. We know what to do with these. But what are those fringe attacks that we could expect that are maybe not that likely, but they aren't zero? That's where we come in and we mix things. We bring in the digital, we bring in the analog, we use that cunning because we were, as I said, those individuals who would think outside the box to find ways to get you to let me into your neighborhood, to get you to let me near your house. Uber Eats. You know how many crimes have been started with people purporting to work for Uber Eats or somebody else? Not saying don't use Uber Eats, I do all the time, but think about it. We have been trained to accept cars with an Uber Eats logo in our neighborhood, even if we've never seen them before. We've been conditioned. It's a behavioral thing. So when I get brought in to secure a firm, I have to think outside the box. That's what they're paying me for. If I was just thinking like everybody else, then I would be no different than everybody else. So I have to come in with that cunning approach and say, okay, hey, we have you protected high tech, but let's make some low tech redundancies here. And that's our differentiator. We do implement that with all of our clients. We have the policy pre-written and we can even enforce it. We have most of the policies from a cyber perspective pre-baked out. We fine tune them for your culture, your organization, and then we go ahead and enforce them and implement them or reverse that.
That's great. And I also like the fact that you said, I'm thinking outside of the box. That means that you put a lot of work and passion into what you do. And that's why it makes you separate from others in the market, as I would have to say.
Thank you.
IRAs maybe are the new standard for small businesses to basically have a security system in place. What is the first practical change someone who is not a finance founder that could do today just to reach a level of protection that is good enough?
We're just talking small business owner. They know there's risks out there and they want to know what steps they can take time now to make sure they're protected.
Yeah, something easy, because if someone is not financial and not so technical, maybe they feel a little bit overwhelmed and they're like, okay, where do I going into?
No, we deal with that a great deal. And in all honesty, it is daunting, especially depending upon what generation you grew up in. I remember when computers had DOS and just the black and green writing. So I've seen the evolution of computers, and now forget about it. You can do anything with an iPad. So that in itself can be daunting. Really, what you have to know is there are threats out there. If coming up with a game plan to defend against the threats that are out there seems daunting to you, imagine what the threats are really like. Because I've just given you a peek behind the curtain. If I were to, rip the curtain down, it's terrifying the amount of attacks that are being launched against even small businesses. You're not safe because you don't make a ton of money. Let's say you're a new business. They will use you to get to somebody, you get to a bigger fish. They will use you to make sure that they can get in there, kind of look around, maybe gain access. If they can get a few grand, these attacks are being generated in countries where $1,000 is a lot of money to these people. It's a lot of money to Americans. $1,000 is a lot of money to the average American. Imagine to somebody who lives in one of the countries where a lot of these hacks are coming from. That's Ethiopia. How much is $1,000 in Ethiopia? Great deal of money. So they will spend the time to try and take that 1,000 from you, and you are very low risk. Nobody's going to chase down this person. Right off the bat, I would say if you're running a business and you have a business domain, get that DMARC and domain security locked down. SPF, DKIM, these are all very technical terms, but I can simplify it and say there are a few security settings that are almost never correctly implemented And we can do remote scans. So we'll remote scan any business that contacts us just to see what their domain settings are looking like security wise. Mm-hmm. And there's even times where we'll probe their business. It'll tell us what operating system they're using. It'll give us all the information we need. And then if we were a bad actor, we would be able to then pick the right tool to maybe get past whatever operating system they're using. Or at the very least, we would know we can launch an email attack because they have very low email security standards. So number one, if you have a business, that means you spent the $15, $20 to get the domain, you have your website, you have your email. Great. You have to secure it. It would be the equivalent of buying new locks on your house, turning the alarm on, and then your 12-year-old never locks the side door. It's the same premise. Yeah. You know at him, wouldn't you? What are you doing? Lock the door. That's what you're doing. If you own a business and you have an email and you're not locking down that domain, you're leaving the side door open. It is a very, very cheap, very easy first foray into cybersecurity. And then we'll walk you through it. We'll say, hey, based on our review, we think you would benefit from these practices as well. A VPN is another great one. VPNs are everywhere. I have my favorite one, but use a VPN. If you're connecting to outside networks, use a virtual private network. So domain security and a VPN, the very two first things you should do, and they're very cost effective. They're very cheap.
Thank you very much. The last question that I do to all of my guests, I would like you to give us a prediction of where this AI hype is going and how do you think it will affect your domain in the future?
The AI hype. Personally, I think AI has very, very strong specific applications, defense technology, things like that. Where does AI live in normal day-to-day society? Right now, it's being used more like a search engine, but I got to be honest, if I have questions, I'll pop them into AI, and it is often eye-opening or just interesting to say the least. But you have to remember, AI is not perfect, so you have to vet it. Don't just take what it says as gospel. Sure. Right? Where do I think it's going? I think certain aspects of AI are trying to find themselves. I think that the energy drain and the energy cost is something that people are paying attention to, but probably not enough. I think that AI is going to dramatically speed up things like quantum computing being a real threat, which it is now as per the government. It is a real threat. We do work with people who are fighting that fight. In terms of cryptography, but AI is going to really supercharge the capabilities of these bad actors, for lack of a better term, whether they're a nation state or just people in a basement with a laptop or a coffee shop and a laptop. So the time of not paying attention to cybersecurity, it's over. Yeah. It just is. And you can try and fight it. I wouldn't place the bet that you're going to win that fight. So you need to take precautions now. And like we spoke about earlier, being proactive is always going to be better, cheaper, and you're not going to have to worry about the potential fallout from, I don't know, your brand or reputation. You could be a huge company, publicly traded, and you have one bad data breach. Guess what? What happens to that stock price?
Sure. Yeah.
So I do believe that it is no longer, hey, cybersecurity, we can wait for it. AI has changed the game, and that's why we're using low-tech solutions like we talked about before. It's a clever way to add a layer of security that costs $0 in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. I would like to thank you for your time. It was a very interesting
Hey, they said I wouldn't make it. They told me pipe my dreams down.